We're gonna, speaking of hot chicks and a guy who knows how to get them. I don't know, has Roeper ever been married, Dan?
I don't think so.
We should ask him. Richard Roeper, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Artie, that's hilarious. You know, these people on Twitter, that chunky thing, and that's funny. You know?
No, it is.
But it's like, what did these people do before Twitter? Did they just scribble viral notebooks until they finally hang themselves, Shawshank style, when they got out of jail? It's amazing. I mean, it is fascinating, and you're right. Show a little sentimentality or say anything. You know, my sainted mother would have been 75 today. I doubt it.
Yeah. No, right. I was back. I started this. You're right. I think they're funny. The negative stuff. I started out by last year. I went to a Springsteen concert. I took pictures. I was backstage, which I thought was unique. I had a unique perspective. I took pictures from backstage of the show, and a guy tweeted to me, "Nobody cares about your stupid pictures, fatso." And if I had a sitcom, I'd make him my head writer.
Well, I mean, and that's one of the classic things on Twitter. And when anytime anybody says nobody cares, what they mean is, I care so much and I want your attention, and here's how I'm going to say
exactly.
it.
Now
that's when a guy with 17 followers speaks to the 6.5 billion people on the earth. Nobody cares what the president has to say about the war. Okay, pal.
Yeah, that's the irony. Well, what about you? Have you completely avoided marriage? You just go from hot chick to hot chick, or what?
Actually, I think they've completely avoided marrying me. But no, I have never been married, which, of course, elicits the inevitable, "Hey, you homo, why don't you kill yourself?" tweets that I get if I don't like Man of Steel.
Well, no, but I can say for sure, I've seen you with a succession of very good-looking women. Is it like you don't want to settle down, or what is the deal?
You know, well, first of all, let me just say officially, congratulations.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it.
Really
Richard,
happy for you.
Yeah, Richard was nice enough to text me early on. Thank you.
Genuinely happy for you guys, and I wish you all the best. And, you know, honestly, I never set out and said, I'm never going to get married. It just, you know, sometimes it was my idea, and sometimes it was somebody else's idea.
It doesn't work.
But you met Sarah, my girlfriend. I've been dating for, like, the last 4 years.
Oh, Sarah from the casino gig. Yeah, okay.
And she's, you know, she's incredibly patient, you know, and, you know, she'll wise up one day and move on. But in the meantime,
she's beautiful.
But, I mean, I've never said I'll never get married. You know, I mean, the guy who has it down pat, of course, is Clooney.
Right, Clooney and Derek Jeter are the two, like the athlete and movie star versions of which one.
I think in part of it, and I'm not saying I'm George Clooney or Derek Jeter, but like with Clooney in particular, I think he always tells them, you know, they get a ride on the Vespa to the villa in Lake Como. They sit down with, you know, Robert Duvall, you know, like Tom Hagen. There's some paperwork, and the amazing thing is, and I've met a couple of his girlfriends, beautiful, lovely women.
Right.
You meet them and you think, in 2 years, it's like elephant graveyards. You'll never see them again.
It is weird.
Them again.
It is weird. When I was on Mad TV, there was a beautiful actress, and she went on to do a couple other things, but never became Julia Roberts. But her name was Brooke Langton. She was on a Melrose Place or something. She was on a Fox show, and I met her a couple of times at Fox events, and she was actually a very nice person too. I enjoyed her company. She might not even remember who I am, but I met her at Fox events. And she was, when Clooney was on ER, she was dating him, and that was kind of like the whisper. So at this Fox event, he showed up, and they were in the corner talking. And I have no idea if this is true or anything, but like I can remember me and my buddies, the writers, comedy writers, comedians, were like worshiping her, like, wow, man, she's so hot. And it looked like he was giving her the breakup speech because she looked like almost in tears. And I was so like I wanted to go punch him to defend her honor. And I'm saying to myself, if he's got the juice to because he wasn't a movie star yet, he was just on ER. If he's got the juice to break up with that chick, that's something else, Yeah, he's doing it right.
But that's how he does it. I remember a few years ago, well, probably about 5 years ago now at the Oscars, and he was dating this woman that he had met. She was like the hostess at a Vegas, restaurant.
Right.
And she was lovely and nice, but I kept thinking, like, you're going to be watching the Oscars next year on TV in your pajamas with your girlfriend saying, I hate him. And it's just an odd thing. I mean, you can't feel sorry for them, but you know that it's not forever.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where you got a chance to go to the Oscars one year with George Clooney. It's a story. Some are smart enough to realize it's not going to last, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and I'll always have that memory. Others are right. Make the investment of, that's it. I can settle down. Let's start tasting wedding cakes, George. Anyway,
Yeah.
so what do you're a huge baseball fan. Before we get on to movies and stuff, that's the great thing about Richard. You can talk about anything. What do you think's going to happen here? Do you think, obviously, if Ryan Braun is taking this deal, what they have on A-Rod is supposedly way bigger. Do you think a guy like A-Rod just packs it in and cuts the losses and says, I'm retiring? Or what do you think's going to happen?
Well, I think, as you well know, the Yankees would sure like that,
Yeah.
And you'd like to think, and we haven't seen a lot of evidence in this guy's career, you'd like to think that he would do the right thing and say, you know what, I've had a great run, I've had a great career, I made some mistakes, I don't deserve the money that's coming my way, I'm coming back from this injury, I'm going to retire.
Right.
Right. It's not going to happen, right? I mean, he'll prove all the naysayers wrong. I mean, I love Ryan Braun. He lied and lied and lied and lied, and then, he releases the statement, and these statements. I want to see video of one of these actors or basketball players or baseball players actually crafting the statement themselves.
Oh, I know.
And that's not the case. And the new thing now is they always say, no matter what the transgression is, like everyone else, I'm human and I'm not perfect.
Right.
So they immediately start throwing it at everybody else. Hey, you're not perfect either.
Yeah, sympathy. And no, you're right. Ryan Braun to me got off with a slap on the wrist. It's the best thing for the Brewers. They're not going anywhere this year. Anyway, he's back day one, opening day next year. And I really think he's a guy that doesn't need that. That's the awful thing about his situation. I don't think he needs those drugs to be a great player. I think he's still going to be a superstar. And 65 games, he's losing $3.8 million. In the real world, an amazing amount of money. In his world, it's tip money, and he's back. I think he got off scot-free. A-Rod is going to have to think through what to do here because he's already lost. I mean, every day there's a new article in the Daily News of the New York Post here in New York about how now Little League kids hate him. Like, it's the worst press ever.
Yeah.
And, I just don't know. It's going to be fascinating what he does. I think there's at least a big suspension coming down without salary. Again, Yanks got to love that. But, where do you go from there if you're him? It's an odd situation.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, Torrey Hunter took a lot of heat last week because he, said, hey, look, you still have to be able to hit a baseball, and everybody did what they could do. And, I mean, it wasn't the right time for it. But the reality is all these guys were elite major league level guys before they started doing this. They didn't start doing this when they were 12.
Very elite, yeah.
And I mean, Barry Bonds is the classic example. He was one of the greatest players of all time.
Hall of Famer.
Before he ever did anything.
Yeah.
But he got so ticked off seeing McGwire and Sosa, who were so clearly on stuff.
Right.
So, hitting 63 and 66 and 70 home runs. And he said, screw this. I can't just hit 47 home runs. I can't just hit 347 and be a great fielder. I'm going to have my head the size of a Macy's balloon and hit 73 home runs. His ego got in the way.
Competitive jealousy, which, I mean, is still a card they'll play every time, a lot of these athletes,
Well, Artie, too, and it's like with some of these guys, and this isn't the case of somebody like Barry Bonds, who clearly, grew up with, had to have some money with his dad being a major league ball player. But a lot of these kids are coming out of the Dominican Republic. They're playing baseball with a shoebox as a glove, And if someone tells them, hey, if you take this, you're going to make it to the majors. I'm not excusing it, but I'm saying a lot of these guys, they're going to do whatever they can to make as much money as they can in the limited time they have as professional athletes.
Well, I think you make a great point. And you know what? I come from a blue-collar town. I was a longshoreman. If I didn't get lucky and get in show business, I'd still be a longshoreman. I am defending them. If it's the difference between poverty in the Dominican Republic or Major League Baseball's lifestyle, where do I shoot up? Where do I shoot up? But if it's the difference between, you're right, 47 homers or 73 homers in a season, I mean, come on. It's the stupidest, egotistical opinion you could imagine, and I have no sympathy for them. I'm sitting here with John Ritchie, a guy who was on the toppest of levels for an athlete, played in 2 Super Bowls in the NFL. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that, John? Is there a lot to that? I mean, the ego thing, and I mean, can you understand that?
I always felt like guys who took steroids, performance enhancers, were guys that were on the bubble.
Right.
Right.
So I always frowned.
You're either going to be a bouncer at a strip club
right.
or a multimillionaire, a major athlete.
I always frowned on them. And I thought they were just for losers, like guys
right.
who didn't belong there. But this is a different scenario entirely,
right.
where these guys did belong. And it's so hard to navigate the truth, to navigate any of what's right in decades of baseball.
Yeah.
Because
no, you're right. Now there's so much
it.
time to ream through, and you can't get the right facts anyway.
I don't know whether to hold it against them or not. I'm completely confused by the whole process. I wish it were
it's odd.
easier.
Yeah.
You know, John, I get what you're saying, too, because I have the same kind of mixed feelings, because, you know, if guys like Roger Clemens were also juicing, even though you might not condone it, you feel like, well, then it kind of did level the playing field on some level. So you know, when I see, like, this weekend, Cooperstown inducted nobody. You know, there's nobody inducted.
That's right.
Except for some old-timers. That seems strange, too. But it's like, if you're not going to take the numbers off the books, you know, me personally, I would vote Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame. You'd include the scandals on his plaque, or, you know, in the exhibit about him. But you can't negate what these guys did.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, you're right. I agree with you. You have to, as a writer, you have to make a definite decision. Like, look, okay, in this era of cheating, or call it whatever, these guys excelled. They excelled over everybody else, and there were pitchers doing it, so maybe that even the playing field, blah, blah, blah. But there are some writers, and one of the biggest is Verducci, and he stands his ground. He's like, no, I don't care if they don't. Nobody gets in for 20 straight years. I'm not voting in these guys.
You know,
here's the thing, too, guys. It's like, okay, you know, we saw all the books like Ball 4 where they talked about guys taking greenies in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
And are we going to put it? You know, we're going to put a notation on Babe Ruth's plaque saying he also played in the all-white era.
Yeah,
you know, where the competition
that's an excellent point, by the way. You know,
and the fact that there were only 16 teams in the major leagues, and you didn't have to do 5-hour trips. And I mean, it's apples and oranges. Each era has its scandals. This is horrible. You hope they put it behind them. The problem now is when you get a guy like Davis on the Orioles having this amazing year, everyone's going like, what's going on with this guy? Even though there's nothing there, well, we don't know.
Suspicion. Now it's everybody's who's good. You were going to say, John?
Right. No, in light of the current Ryan Braun thing, the first thing that popped into my mind was how much of this is just trying to make amends with the other players in Major League Baseball. Like, how much of this is truly doing the right thing, and how much of this is
Ryan
Braun's part? How much of this is, man, everyone hates me because they all know I was juicing, and I tested positive, and I got off on some goofy technicality where I said that my urine sat over the weekend.
Thing,
yeah, so everyone knew he was juicing before, but he got away with it, and now his name comes up in this other thing. Was that what pushed him over the edge?
Unfortunately,
and caused him to admit?
Unfortunately, I'm jaded. I think it's all selfish on his part. That's what I think. But look, again, nobody is fully evil, and nobody is fully good.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, it's an odd situation.
Because I mean, John, you know this. Like, you know, the NFL. I remember, you know, this is going back 20+ years, but you know, Jim McMahon on the Bears, who just got the crap beat out of him, which cut his career short. But you know, there was a picture in my paper, the Sun Times. This goes back almost 25 years of him taking a needle to his hand on the sideline, so he could, so he could dull the pain and go back out there. And he was hailed as this tough guy hero, which he was. You know, tough guy player. But it's like, well, if you can take the cortisone or whatever else during a game, that's okay. Because let's face it, the reality is, and Artie, you mentioned this, the fans really don't care. You know, they care a lot about the teams. They care, but they don't really care what you guys who are athletes go through. They just want you out there. They don't want to know.
And they want to see. Another thing, let's face it, they want to see home runs. It's exciting.
Right.
And you know, look, it goes back to North Dallas 40. You know, the book and Nick Nolte's character. Heck, I love Needles. Put me out there. You're right. They were looked at as the tough guys, the warriors who took
Needles
it. And
helped. Needles made you feel better.
What about you're a White Sox fan, very public White Sox fan. What about a guy like Frank Thomas? What do you think he's feeling? A guy who claims, and I believe obviously, never juiced, just the big hurt. Naturally big, great player. What do you think a guy like he feels like nowadays with all the stuff coming out?
Yeah, I mean, I think a guy like Frank Thomas feels vindicated. I mean, and Frank had his ups and downs here in Chicago just in terms of his relationship with the media and with the players, because he was a guy that always knew what his batting average was and always knew. But he was also the kind of guy who was constantly saying, look, I did this the natural way, you know, and I think it drove him crazy because here was a guy who was hitting 42 home runs, who was hitting 350 as a big, power hitter, but a line drive kind of guy. And it was driving him crazy that, that other players, he knew they were juicing. He never, publicly said that. But I think he feels vindicated, and I think he's on the ballot in either next year or the year after that. I think he should get voted in.
Put him in.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. Listen, guys like that could sound annoying. Like, you go, oh, what do you, okay, we get it. You're shouting from the mountaintop every 2 seconds. you didn't juice. But you in that era, you can't blame a guy like that. He's being a good man. He's not ratting. But if he's not going to rat, it's perfectly fine if he wants to just do the other thing and talk and say, look, I'm not ratting, but I am definitely not doing it. I think there's nothing wrong with that at all, you know?
Here's another guy I think who gets overlooked in all this. 611 career home runs is Jim Thome.
Can you imagine that? He's got 611 career homers.
And
wow.
Never any suspicion. And I knew him a little bit. He was with the White Sox for a while, but he was just this big country strong guy from Peoria, Illinois.
Fun to watch.
And just loved the game.
Yeah.
And I think, as far as we know, there was never any suspicion. But he was, he was a little quieter because he's not, not as much of a ego guy as Frank Thomas. But 611 home runs in an era where I'm sure he looked around sometimes and thought, well, how come that guy all of a sudden is hitting the ball 450 feet?
That is amazing. You know what? I would not have known. I would have guessed the 500 club with him, but 611, man. A lot of years in Cleveland, he was on those good Cleveland teams that used to beat up the Yankees from time to time, so I knew about Thome. That's astonishing. I didn't realize 6'11". Oh, well, there you go. Never involved with steroids. There's a first ballot guy.
The reason I know that, honestly, is he just got, the White Sox just hired him as kind of a, an office guy,
right?
Ambassador for the team and stuff. So there was a recent special on him here and talking about his career. And he's also a guy that really respects the history of the game and knows the history of the game. There was this great story about a couple of years ago, he and his father took a cross-country drive to Cooperstown just to go to the Hall of Fame as fans. And when you hear about a player doing that...
That's great. Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's a guy, if he's not first ballot, especially in this era, I don't know what is. Got to take a break. You can hang around a little bit, right, Rich?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, man. Richard Roeper when we come back.